And that gets us to the nature of modern parties. I want to bring in Congressman Jerry Nadler, Democrat from New York, who wrote for the Huffington Post a piece about this being essentially democracy at issue here. And there's a fascinating bit of data I want to show you. This is essentially about the overlap between the most conservative Democrat and the most liberal Republican, which for decades there was a whole area in the middle where you had overlap between the people that were, you know, the most conservative Democrats and the most liberal Republicans, and there was overlap and overlap and overlap. And as we've gone through time, that overlap has completely evaporated. Congressman.
Well, that is true. And that makes making compromises much harder. But that's not the fundamental issue here. The fundamental issue here is that the Republicans are doing what no one has done since arguably before the Civil War, and that is trying to use a minority control of one house, or even a minority in one house the control of that house, to thwart the will of the majority. I mean, the Obamacare bill was passed, the Affordable Care Act bill was passed by the Senate, by the House, by a majority of Congress, signed by the President, okayed by the Supreme Court. It was one of the issues in the election in which the Democratic Senate and the President were reelected. If you want to repeal it, and again, without regard to the merits of it, if you want to repeal it, make that case to the American people. Get a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate, and the President.
Right, but
don't blackmail the country by saying we'll destroy the economy if you don't go along with us.
Well, this gets back to this rules question that Jonathan and I were just talking about, which is they're not doing anything that violates the Constitution. I mean, they are essentially attempting to maximize their leverage. They're reacting in a rational way given the constraints.
They're not violating the Constitution, but they're violating democratic norms.
Right.
The norms upon which this government, the operations of our democracy, depends. And that norm is you allow the majority to rule. And if you think the majority is wrong, you try to convince the American people of that.
I want to bring in someone
temporarily, but nothing's been decided. And I think the question that a lot of people in America have is, why bring the Constitution into it? Why is this just not people who can't do their jobs?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Jonathan.
With all due respect,
Congressman, please.
Okay. With all due respect, that's simply wrong. It is unprecedented. You don't see the Democrats in the Senate saying, we'll cause a default on the debt and we'll destroy the economy unless you give us a strong immigration bill or a strong gun control bill or the union recognition bill that we wanted. It took 60 years to get any kind of national health insurance till even though we had Democratic presidents and Congresses before, because you had to assemble a majority in all three branches at one time. What's making this unusual, unprecedented, is that the Republicans in the House are threatening not to negotiate, but they're threatening default. They're threatening catastrophe. It's like a 1930s gangster film, as I wrote, saying, in which somebody says, it's a nice economy you got there, pity if it should happen to blow
Congressman, when you say that this is unprecedented, how do you understand the rupture that's happened? Which, you see what I'm saying? Like, at what point did the GOP convert over from something that was normal to something that was abnormal, something that was precedented to something that was unprecedented?
I think it's been developing for a while. And Norm Ornstein and Mann in their books say that the Republicans have become an outliner, an insurgent, not a real political party anymore. And I think, I don't know exactly when, but when they determined that stopping Obamacare or any particular goal became important enough to threaten the economy, to take hostages, to take the government and the country hostage, that's when the point was reached. And it was certainly reached when they threatened, when they used the debt ceiling for that purpose 2 years ago. The president, unfortunately, negotiated with them and gave us a sequester. He can't do that again because that'll be the end of democratic government.
End of democratic governance. And Heidi, you cover financial